Thank you. I think it's time for us to start, and I suspect it would be good if you could join me, please, in saying the karakia, please. Whakataka te ho ki te uru, whakataka te ho ki te tonga, kia ma kina ki uta, kia ma taratara ki tai, e he aki ana te atakura, he teo, he hoka, he hau, ti he moriora. Thank you. Right, apologies. We've got a couple of people just needing to pop out at various stages. That's fine, but I think otherwise I've got a full crowd, haven't I? I have, which is really tremendous. And look, in doing so, actually, it's remiss of me, David. Welcome to your ascension to power of the Audit Risk Management Committee. It's great. It's tremendous. It's been lovely to meet you. And look, I certainly look forward to your contribution, and you've said to me you're going to be quiet today. I would encourage you, there is every scope for you to be able to ask your questions, even if you're less than certain. I suspect they will be questions that we want answered as well, so please be involved and welcome to the meeting. Bede, it's appropriate for me to acknowledge you. This is my first meeting with you as Chief Executive, so congratulations. You're the boss now, so I need to acknowledge that. But no, well done, Bede, and congratulations. And you have been tremendous in support of the committee in your prior role, and I'm very grateful you're here today that we continue to have A, the relationship, and B, the support from you personally, but with your crowd here. And in fact, I would like to then just go on to say to the GMs, I've got a good. I think am I missing any? It looks like I've got a good number of them anyway, and I'm incredibly grateful. Are we trying to count up, are we? Doesn't. Yeah, look, all I just want to say is thank you to all of you here. You already heard in our preparation that actually there's some great papers here. Thank you, Min. And it's great to have the GMs here because there is the need for some honest conversation with the papers we have in front of us, but the fact that you guys are here is tremendous. So thank you also for being here. So with that, I don't think we have any apologies, other than I just note a couple of people have to skip out. I do want to plan to be completed by 1, so we'll aim to have a short break, 5 minutes to check your phones at 11:30, which is about half time, and there are no substitutes in this. You have to stay. It's not like an All Black test. Rightio, let's go. No apologies. Any matters on here that you need to note your interests for? Doubt it. Okay, the meetings of the previous minutes, we've got them there. Remind me, Luke, I think it's June that we had that meeting, wasn't it? 15th of June, I'm going to move that they're true and correct. I have a person prepared. Thank you, Michael. Is there any matters of accuracy or correctness you need to raise? No. All those in favour, please say aye. It's carried. Thank you. No public forum, Luke? No. No deputations, no presentations. So, with a bit of luck, we've got Greg on the line somewhere, have we? We've got Greg there. G'day, Greg. Welcome to the meeting. And
thank you. Good morning, all.
Yeah, no, great to have you here, man. And thank you. So, look, chance for some comments. What's life like from the audit officer's side from Wellington, mate? Tell us, what should we be worried about?
Oh, well, of course, it's always super up here. So I suppose, I mean, there's so many things we could talk about, and I know that you've working to a fairly tight time frame. So I'll just focus on a couple of things, and then if there's anything else you want to open it up onto, I'm happy to to answer any questions. I mean, it's our main focus at the moment is on the long-term plan audit round coming up. Of course, we've got the annual audits as well to think about, but the long-term plan is the major piece of extraordinary work, I suppose you might call it, that we're focused on at the moment. And we're finalising the methodology. The areas that we're really looking to focus on are local government reforms and how they're being implemented and proposed changes being dealt with, for example, rates capping, financial sustainability and prudence, your asset planning, performance frameworks, how practical are they, and are they relevant to council outcomes and objectives, climate change assumptions and responses to those, your financial strategy, your infrastructure strategy, your financial modelling, and then of course the areas that would be particularly a focus for Christchurch as opposed to other councils, and that's something that Chantal would be discussing with you. The things that we are looking at in general, from the perspective of what the office in Wellington is doing, as opposed to your auditor on the ground. So we've been updating the LTP methodology, as I mentioned, and our guidance to reflect legislative and sector changes and to support a more risk-based approach, and happy to have a discussion about what that might mean. Providing training and supporting to auditors to ensure that there's consistency. We're engaging early with councils, and that would be kind of more probably Chantal talking with you directly to identify those risks and emerging issues. Keeping a close eye on reform developments, and maintaining close engagement with MCERT now that that's taken over that role from DIA, Taitoara and others in the sector. We're preparing new water-related audit responsibilities and reporting frameworks, and we're providing guidance mainly to our auditors on water reform, accounting, reporting and disclosure matters. So it's about ensuring that we're across what's happening and that the auditors are across what's happening and that they can engage with you sensibly and meaningfully around all of those areas of those risks and potential issues, and to a productive outcome. There's some work that we've done recently, which I could quickly talk about if there's time, Bruce. Just to raise your attention, a couple of documents. One is our annual plan we released recently. The main piece of work in there that would interest the council would be we're going to be looking at council in general, local authority, financial sustainability. So we're still scoping them up as to exactly what that focus will be, but we'll be looking at the extent to which councils are able to manage themselves over the longer term. So that's a piece of work in train rather than something that's already up and running. We recently issued a report on how local authorities are providing or enabling access for people with disabilities. So we looked at 3 councils, including Ashburton, down the road from you. We made a number of findings in there, more or less generally positive, but some recommendations for those councils and for all councils to consider when they're looking at new projects and how they can enable accessibility for people with disabilities, ensure that they're engaging with that community to achieve the best outcome. And those would probably be the key recent pieces of work that would be of interest to the council. I'm happy to stop at that point. And because I know you'll be talking with Chantal later as well, more directly around the audit. So yeah, happy to stop there and just if there's any questions.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Greg. And as always, I'm very grateful the office as a whole is here, not just local, but also national as well. Appreciate that. Do you have questions for Greg, guys, at this stage? No? Look, I'm just keen to know where we're going with the LTP. We've got the preliminary advice, but Chantal, we'll cover that off when we get to Peter's paper on the LTP, which is fine. I was interested, by the way, in your comments about looking at water reform accounting. I suspect we will be interested in actually what comes out of that, one way or the other, which is absolutely fine. So that's brilliant. Okay, look, yes, Sam, go for it.
Yeah, hey, thanks. That's really useful. Just in terms of the water reform stuff, you obviously talked about the accounting. I was just keen to understand for the councils that are keeping their water in-house, what you're seeing in terms of governance structures being established. And if it doesn't have to be today, but it'd be great to get some advice around best practice and how we should be looking at that.
Okay, no, that's something I'll probably take away. I noticed that we did have, and I'm just trying to track that down there where I put my papers. But some of the guidance we have been working on was for auditors working with councils that are managing their water in-house, because there are different requirements than there are for councils who are, sort of putting it out into a separate organisation. So yeah, we could definitely, I can take that away and see if we can provide you with some sort of background information on that. in terms of imperatives.
That'd be really useful. Thank you. Cheers.
That's an outstanding question for us, Sam, obviously. Or just, you can, yeah. Okay, brilliant. That's a good question. Thank you, Greg. Appreciate that. Always useful. So we'll just take that as received. Do I have to pass a resolution for that? I think we can just accept that as an update. Greg, thank you for that. Appreciate. I don't, even though we are quick, I don't take it for granted that you're here, and I do appreciate your presence. Thank you.
And if I may just say, just very briefly, unfortunately, this will be my last attendance at this committee. My secondment's drawn to a close at the end of the month. So I'd just like to say, be heading back to central government. I've really valued the time I spent with you. It's my hometown, so I really care about it. And yeah, so keep up the good work and good luck with the rest of your endeavours.
Thank you, Greg, and all the best for you as well. I appreciate that. We look forward to meeting whoever is sort of taking over, so it'll be great. Thank you.
Cheers.
Organisational health, safety and wellbeing update, please. Golly, Michelle, is it down the end of the table? Right down the end of the table there. Hi, I'm Bruce. Michael here as well. If you're the other independent here, if you haven't met us before.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Yes, I'm Michelle Keisha. I'm the Health, Safety and Wellbeing Manager, and beside me is Marlena Burkett, who's our Health and Wellbeing Advisor. So just a quick little bit of information. The Health and Safety and Wellbeing team's core function is to provide operational advice to our internal units to best manage their risks. And we report on staff-related incidents and also users of council facilities, example customers who may have an incident in one of our recreational facilities, our parks or our libraries. And lastly, we report on contractor incidents from vertical capital projects and council projects in general. So areas to highlight from the report are we are seeing increased incident reporting in general through our health and safety and wellbeing platform, Noggin. And this is not generally because there are more incidents occurring, it's just as staff become more confident with the platform from the previous one. They're reporting more incidents and more near misses. We're also seeing a decrease in the number of critical risk incidents being reported, and we are monitoring this over time, but we do believe this is because there's been more emphasis on teams, managers, staff looking at the critical risks and the controls involved. We also have introduced the electronic permit to work system back in March. This is providing significant clarity and transparency in incidents and control mechanisms. And we are seeing this is, making a huge difference in what we see. Included in the report is information on the Critical Risk Consolidated Controls Project, which was endorsed from ELT. This is where we have our SMEs looking at all 13 critical risks and with the aim to develop a standard for all critical risks. This will relate to very consistent application of the controls across the organisation in time. And lastly, just mentioning that the current health and safety team have undergone quite a lot of change over the last short while. We've had team members leaving council, we've had 3 promotions within the team, and we've had new staff that have really had the skills that we've been looking for, the gaps to best service our units, who manage the risk. So, happy to take any questions.
Oh, thank you for that, Michelle. That's tremendous, and it's a very informative report, for which I suspect we've got lots of questions. So can I open the floor for my committee to ask some questions? Got any that you'd like to do so? Or am I just talking for myself? I've got lots. Will I lead off? Look, and there's no particular order in these ones, Michelle. One of the ways in which, I'm looking at this primarily from the level of systems and processes and our responsibilities under the Act, although I must confess today I'm probably focusing a wee bit more around incidents and what have you. One of the indicators of the seriousness of incidents is whether we have to inform WorkSafe. Have we had to inform WorkSafe at all over this period about any of the incidences that has happened?
None for the last quarter that we've reported on. We certainly have for previous quarters. We've had incidents that have triggered those work-safe
No, good,
notifications.
but I mean, the last quarter we which
didn't.
I mean, I'm only trying to think through your premise that actually critical risks in terms of incidences are reducing. It
Yes.
also means, therefore, we're probably not having to engage WorkSafe. I did note that that it was one of our workers ran into a WorkSafe member. I
Yes.
presume probably something like a building consent officer. They have to tell me that. And was our officer picked up for some level of indiscretion?
No, they were just purely, it was an educational visit, and they were just checking overlapping PCBU responsibilities.
Okay,
So there was some
good. I didn't know whether I had to read anything behind those words or not. I'm glad you've corrected me on that one, and I'm very happy with that. Look, just a couple of points around just one or two of the sort of systems processes. I think I saw in here somewhere, I'm just trying to find it now, you mentioned that you'd had an HSC meeting and you had 50% of the reps there. That seemed like a low number. Is there an issue there?
we just generally find they do get rotated through, so they might not attend all 3 meetings a year, but they certainly do, represent at least 1 or 2. But yeah, it is an area that we are really trying to encourage managers to release their reps, to be at those meetings.
Yeah.
There is more work needed there.
Great. Well, look, I'd encourage you on that. It didn't look like the number that I would be hoping for. Again, if I go back to the idea of systems and process, part of the indicator that we are treating this seriously as an organisation. I mean, this is an organisational issue. I'm not having a crack at the individual members. Is that should be pretty well attended. So thank you for giving us the information, but I don't think I was that happy at the idea of 50%. And I guess similar to that, I looked at the stats you gave us around training and manager responsibilities, and it looked like we'd only had 70%. Now, is that a glass half full or a glass half empty? You might want to tell me that. But again, if we've got managers' responsibility, I would be expecting 100%.
Yes.
Again, if we're treating this seriously, I'm not having a crack at you guys because you guys are the champions for this. I'm probably looking down further up the table. If we're sensible, that's not the right number. Just as 50% at the Health and Safety Committee is not the right number. So it raises the question, we are, but are we really taking health and safety seriously enough? I perhaps leave that as a rhetorical question, but that's the sort of thing I'm looking for, is our systems and processes inside this organisation, what's it reflecting that we do take it seriously or we don't? If we take it seriously, I reckon those numbers would be higher. I'd love the committee, by the way, to encourage it. I'd love to meet your chair of your Health and Safety Committee. Oh, yes, go for it, Anne.
Sorry, so the chair of the Health and Safety Network Committee is generally me.
Oh, right, okay. We've got the chair.
That's
okay,
me.
that's great.
And actually that was the Health and Safety Representatives Forum, so it wasn't the committee structure, it was the forums, which are quarterly, and all of the health and safety representatives across the organisation are invited to attend, and it's an opportunity to share and learn and focus on particular topics. So I do think this 50% attendance, I think there was something, look, it's a good thing to call out. Usually the attendance is actually quite high. From that perspective, I think in terms of the manager training at 70%, so as an ELT, we've just agreed to have an ELT priority on health and safety, visible health and safety leadership. So that's actually being cascaded through the FY27 plans, plan, develop, performs. So it's very explicit, a very explicit mandate for everybody to be visible in their health and safety leadership, not because you've got that in your title, but actually we all are responsible for health and safety. And some and the examples of the kinds of behaviours that we have given is timeliness and training, actually asking the health and safety questions when you're out on site, attending the chair meeting, attending the network meetings, releasing your staff to attend as health and safety reps, all of those sorts of things. So, I expect that we will see an uplift in the very near future. Yep.
Brilliant. And look, and I'm very keen, rather than being critical, that as a committee we help set the tone from the top. And that's why, and I can only focus on the information that's given in front of me here, and that's why I'm very keen, again, and I would love, even in our pre-meet, to devote more time to health and safety, to make certain that we roll this, that we are really being serious. So thank you for that, Anne. That's really helpful stuff. Look, the other thing that I noted, and in fact I know my committee members have already had a chat about, was and Andrew, we were talking before about the predominance of aggressive behaviour for particularly people in your department, and I was concerned, as I said before, about the sort of psychosocial implications of that as well, and the risk, overusing that word, the propensity for organisations to say, well, that just goes with the job, and I'm not certain I'm happy with that sort of stance. So again, what sort of support could the committee give around this, or what could you help us understand there that is actually, shall we say, enabling staff to cope with the situation and or minimise?
Yeah. Exactly, because it is one too that is probably harder, that people aren't necessarily reporting, and it is occurring. I think it is just, what we see is just managers really understanding that the risks that they're facing. Often in some of the customer service facing ones, the managers will step in and be there as well, so that they're showing that visible leadership and understanding the risks. Also, the ability to have security where there's needed to be in hotspots, and we've seen hotspots sort of developing in certain areas, and really, concentrating and having that first view. It often can be a deterrent. It's not saying it will stop it, but it certainly can help. Just, managers really understanding what their people are going through every day is really key, and knowing where they can jump in and support them.
Brilliant.
We see.
Good, Sam.
Thanks. Really good report. It was sort of on that, but a wee bit different, which was, I guess, we're trying to get through, and I know Bede and LT are trying to do, is like the quick win stuff as well through the organisation. So what's the stuff that we can do quickly that makes the biggest impact? And I wonder if it could be reflected in here going forward. Is there, and we were talking about it earlier, Andrew, around the easy, like the mechanisms you've put in place at like libraries and things like that. Is there an outstanding work program of stuff that still needs to be fitted around the city to better protect staff? I guess what I'm thinking is, like, if there was an incident and we get WorkSafe involved, have we looked at everything we can practically do given the resource intensive nature of our organisation, and said, actually, for another $300,000 we could have done all of this stuff that may prevent that harm on staff? Have we, is that all wrapped up, or is that something that we can get some visibility over? Because I think that sort of coincides with it, is us enabling that easy stuff, or the quick wins that make the biggest impact on people.
I think it might be helpful if I just jump in here. So there has been a program of work called the Unacceptable Behaviours, which is alluded to at the back of this program, and I think the intention is for that to be visibility of that program and what it's achieved and where it's got to, reported back through, and we talked about that at ELT off the back of this report coming through. That had a whole lot of work streams around the physical security, the managing health and wellbeing, putting in customer behavioural expectations and everything. I think we need to bring that back as a view on what have we got, and if there is a gap or there's something missing, we need to work it through. As much like the mention of the physical features that have been put around where cash handling is occurring. Yeah. I think the other thing is we are transitioning from a culture of compliance into a culture of leaders leading health and safety. So it is very much a transition, and we are transitioning those who are responsible operationally to lead health and safety. We're positioning them to lead it. So there's also that piece going on as well. So Andrew, you might have another view, or similar view?
No, I support that 100%. In terms of the physical work, and I guess that you might have been referring to in terms of cost and value, all the work that's being implemented is being implemented with an existing budget. So different units have had to reprioritise some work to get some traction in that space. So It's not something we typically see in capital budgets that health and safety has a specific focus. It's a focus that goes into every consideration of upgrade or new builds. Has it been as swift as I would have liked? Probably not. But unit heads are having to make some pretty tough decisions around spend. Health and safety obviously is not something that we compromise. But every facility is slightly different, so it's not roll out a one size fits all.
A bit of plastic,
But it is something that certainly in my group where, as has been mentioned, we have, I guess, the vast majority of frontline services is considered every time we look at a facility upgrade, or certainly there's been a program has rolled out through pretty much every facility to improve staff safety. We're down to a few minors that, like for example, we didn't rush into Jelly Park because we knew we had a closure coming, and so
it's phased in.
Yeah.
Well, that might be useful when that comes back, just so we can understand if there's anything the council should be doing, because given it's people business, we need to be looking at that. So
Sam, I also took your comment as being, what is the broader strategy for improvement? Which, if there is a broader plan, I think we would like to see visibility to encourage and support the improvement. I think that's really what I take from your comments, Sam. How do we help with this? So that would be really important. Folk, any other questions you'd like to do? Otherwise, yes, Michael?
Yeah, I just had, there's just a comment in here about several units continue to report no hazards.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd just like to understand, is that because in your view there are no hazards, or is that, I guess the worst case would be there was a major hazard there and they don't want to report it because it might reflect poorly on them or something.
Yeah. I believe what they are doing is putting the hazard on the risk register straight away and not necessarily reporting it to have a look at. And that's just an area that we are working with units on. Just there's probably a better process in terms of identifying a hazard first, really looking into it, investigating it, having the manager review it, and then looking at what they can do to support, to minimise the hazard. But often it goes straight to the risk register. We're taking our data from a specific hazard reporting function of Noggin, just to explain how that works.
Yes, go for it, Tim.
A wee while ago, libraries came to us when there was an issue with Skinny, and the thing that surprised me was that senior management didn't know that there was an issue at the coalface, and yet it had been reported in the systems. So are you confident now throughout the units that we don't actually have that now, that gap?
I think there's still incidents occurring. The Skinny, they have minimised. There's been controls put in place. There's been less face-to-face interactions. It's moved to phone-based. There's still unacceptable behaviours occurring on the phone, but those people are generally conditioned to that. I'm not saying that's right, but they're used to more people on the phone. So I think it has moved the issue over to different roles. But there certainly is still some residue there and some issues occurring. I see.
It seems from the very good report that we've got that in other units that's kind of reduced as well. So would that be a fair assessment?
Yes, okay. I think so, yes.
Cool. Thank you for that.
Okay.
The second one is probably for ELT. With regards to, say, management, health and safety, training and meetings, is there because you mentioned the 50%, and which is unusual, but are there a must attend? Is there a rule there with health and safety, some training, etc.? I'm not sure if there is, but...
Not a specific mandate, but in saying that we... People and Capability are preparing a more broader paper around what we expect to be mandated training for managers, and it's not just health and safety, there's a suite of them. So that work is certainly in place. Yeah. So
I encourage that. I certainly agree with you. The idea of people leaders or your team leads and actually them being your champions internally for this is really important. So again, I leave it as an open offer. There are some things I'm just thinking through. I'd love the committee to understand a wee bit more. I'd like to perhaps explore a bit more about the wellbeing, which we won't do today, but I would like to, because I think that's actually the other side. It's a very positive side, but actually what are we doing? So, and be very keen, along with the team at the end of the table, that we keep up and develop our ability to understand and actually support the initiatives you're doing. So thank you for that.
Yeah, sorry, and I do think we've missed an opportunity, and I apologise for a bit more of the context. This went straight into reporting. There is a 5-year improvement plan on health and safety. We're at the last year of the current one, and Michelle is actually in the process of defining up what the next 5 years is going to look like. We anticipate that will be coming to you, either before Christmas or slightly thereafter. We are also consolidating the wellbeing framework for the organisation. So we have a lot of really amazing wellbeing initiatives going on. We've got a really good understanding. Marlena does a fabulous piece of work around that. She's actually quite dedicated in that space now. To actually have a consolidated view on what our wellbeing framework is and how do we manage it. So, coming into that psychosocial harm piece as well. So there's a lot of moving parts at the moment. I think we'll bring back more of a consolidated strategic view for you, not just the reporting on incidents. So apologies for that.
I'm very grateful for what we've got, but I would be very keen, because that's where I think our focus can and should be. So I appreciate that. Thank you for your time, you guys. The motion is that we receive the report. I have a mover and a seconder, please. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Tim. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Yes, it's carried. Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you, you guys. Luke, is he around? We've got. Oh, he is. Oh, David. G'day, David. Thank you. Any key points you'd like to make, man?
Good guys. Just Luke Stevens, head of procurement and contracts, on annual leave today, so just stepping in his place.
Brilliant, mate.
David McArdle, team leader for procurement special projects and support. Yes, I'll take the report as read, but happy to answer any questions you may have about it.
Very good. Questions for David here? Yes, go Sam.
It might be something to take back and have a think about. Is just, I know that Auckland Council they have a value for money committee. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying set up a committee. I despise committees, except this one, of course.
Sounds like a reporting committee, Sam.
I'm certainly not saying create more governance and bureaucracy around it. But I guess what would be really useful at some stages, could we just get this to sense check with the process they run to see whether there's any work that could be done that can add value to Christchurch? Unless you're already doing that.
Yes, sorry, through the chair, I can answer that. David probably hasn't had exposure to it. So ELT has recently become aware of the Value for Money Committee. Helen and I actually spoke with one of the Value for Money team leader actually in Auckland Council 2 days ago, to understand the context of that committee, the various work streams that report into that committee, and actually the intention around what it is that they're doing. So we've got all of that knowledge and information. Our next step was to swing it back to ELT and say, this is what this is about, where to next, how do we help our governance in terms of raising that kind of, some sort of structural, something like that. Yeah.
And it may not even be you're working this way, but it may not be a structure. It might be, it's just a report that comes here.
Yeah.
Without creating another, work stream. But I've looked at it for the last few years and thought there must be something there that we can learn from.
Yeah.
What equally they might be learning from us.
They have a really, we haven't had a chance. They have a structure and an actual organisational structure that supports this, and they set targets, just briefly, targets for the organisation to save money annually, and a team is specifically there to kind of do deep dive service reviews to enable that. So we need to think about how that works. Yeah.
We raised it. I just think there's a good chance here it'd be good to get circle back here at some stage, but we raised it during the LTP, and I think we talked about it.
Yeah, Peter's there. He's hiding.
It was just around, like I say, what we can do that drives some more of that value and how we report it. So it sounds like you've got it underway. So that was my only question.
No, it's good, and I think it overlaps indeed with Peter's LTP paper, given some of the numbers I saw there in terms of 654. So it's a really good point, and it would be a great compliment. Because I actually, Sam, I haven't seen this sort of information elsewhere coming to a risk committee, so I actually really like it. And so, David, thank you for, on behalf of Luke, that we do get this to get a sense of where it is. Other questions for David or Anne while we're here? I note there's a couple of areas where, David, there's in bold management action underway, so I'll be keen to see where that gets to in terms of the numbers. We tend to try and look at this longitudinally rather than just as an individual item, but we'll see how that goes and get further reporting. I sense there's no other questions. Can we go to the resolution, please, which is that we receive the information. I'll move it. I have a second to thank you, Michael. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, it's carried. Thank you. Thanks, David. Appreciate you standing up, man. That's great. Peter, long-term plan.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone.
Is it the only game in town?
No, it's not that. Too many games in town.
In your hands, Peter. What would you like us to focus on or no?
Well, what I might do is just do a little bit of context scene setting before we're going into specifics. Look, the LTP is operating in probably more uncertainties than previous ones. We're working to legislation that is not actually legislation. We're working to a structure that we may or may not have a different structure, and we're working to government direction that may not be government. But apart from that, everything's really clear. The project, despite all that, is planned and largely on track. We have a very clear letter of expectation, 654. We have a clear set of directions on how big and affordable and deliverable capital should be. The FS and the IS are drafted. We've done a first round of level of service review as a light touch. We have a capital prioritisation model that we've not had before. Activity plans are underway. Draft product, first draft, work in progress, going to ELT on the 1st of September. And then the plan is to go to council on the 2nd of October. But that's not final product. That is for a 10-week review, substitute, align, test, tweak kind of period. But all of those deadlines are earlier than we have been in the past. And our Finance and Performance Committee have asked for a report at the end of September that flags have we achieved a comprehensive draft that does 654. The direction we have is that if we haven't, we need to hold until we have. They don't wish to receive a partial LTP. So that's all great process planning and theory, but the next 6 to 8 weeks is the hard bit. This is where it moves from process to decisions. OPEX is getting close, not quite there, but then again, the time is not all used up either. CapEx, we have a clear limit. We also have how it should be divided up, but again, we haven't actually executed that. The program's still too high. So that's the big picture of where the LTP is at. We're going into the hard bit around decisions and perhaps the realisation that if you do 654 and you end up at 4, which is where we're obliged to go, it's a little bit like doing less weekly shopping. You've trimmed, but you don't have the wiggle room you do if everybody drops over. There will be risk at the end of this. If we get to 654 successfully and ELT is committed to doing that, there will be more risk than we had at, say, 10.98. And understanding what that risk looks like will be something that happens down the line. At the moment, we're just looking at getting to that point, but at the end, we'll need to be to that point and understand what that means. So that's the overall context. The specifics of the report, well, it does step through what's going well. It gives you a checklist about all the components. The components are basically there, but they all lead to this decision-making phase of the next 6 weeks or so. There is one little, there's a flag in there because your instruction to us early was flag things early. There is a little flag in there about just clarifying some terminology so that we don't confuse levels of service with things that are not levels of service. That sounds like semantics, but it actually has an impact on the capital program because a big layer of the capital program, the second biggest after renewals, is things based on levels of service. And we need to be sure that they're based on the levels of service that council have seen and reviewed and are comfortable with, and are not conflated with technical operational measures that staff have set internally. They're two different things. So all that is looking for is clarity of taxonomy. And the other one is more of a question than anything else, which is there's been a drop in our scores for the AMA assessment around Three Waters. It's a fairly significant drop. What we're trying to understand is that a thing or is that a glitch from the assessor? If it's a thing, what does it mean for the LTP? And if it's not, then we can understand it and move on from it. But what does that drop mean, given that it informs the renewals program? So you've got one thing that informs the level of service layer in the capital program. You have another thing that informs the renewals layer. It's testing, have we got those right? So that we can then achieve the cap of 570 or so that we've set. We're currently about 200 over every year. So if we're going to bring that 200 down, understanding those two questions is not semantics, it's the real deal. So that's what that yellow light is about. Other than that, there's not really a lot to add from a technical level. I mean, there's an infinite amount of tendrils and detail around an LTP, but that's the big picture. The planning and the process is healthy. We're going into the tricky bit.
Great, thank you for that, Peter. Sam.
You want to just touch on, and good report, just because this report's coming to F&P next week, but it's been changed slightly.
Yes.
Do you want to just touch on those changes, because it might help answer the query that probably everyone's got?
Yep. As a result of the F&P agenda setting meeting, those mitigations around clarity and nomenclature were raised. They were elevated from a note in the report to now a resolution that we will embed that clarity in. These are council's LTP levels of service. Those are operational management day-to-day BAU measures, so that there's absolute clarity, so that when we do get visited by our colleagues in audit, we don't get the question, why do you have two sets of performance standards? And if so, how do they work? It's sorted. So that's been raised up to a resolution that will go to F&P next week. And from there, it should simply flow forward. The AMA one is a little bit the same. It poses the question, and we still need to do some work on what does that mean? Is it a thing? And if so, what do we need to do? Or if it's not, let's call it that and move on. Yes, there was a lively discussion around councillors. I mean, obviously we've got $14 billion worth of assets. What's the governance oversight of how those assets are managed, as opposed to the staff oversight of it? Because obviously staff don't have oversight of themselves on everything, and particularly something as significant as that. So that's also a topic of conversation that I think will get explored further next week.
Great. Other questions? Yes, Michael.
More just an observation. Although I will be interested to hear the outcome of the AMA and the ratings. Is there an issue there, or is it because the data is better that it's identifying an issue that's already there? Because we've got another report coming up later where data seems to be an issue, and if that's a issue across infrastructure, then I think it's something that we should be better informed about and what's happening to resolve it over a period of time.
Well, I mean, the AMA report, I think, goes to 174 pages, and it's a hell of a read. But it really does talk just about the here and now. So it doesn't really sort of compare the last one to this one and say, this is what's happened, or go into any of that. It's a snapshot in time, you are here. So it doesn't really tell you that story. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've been slow to figure out what it really means. Is it really, that 20%, 20-point drop? Is it data and processes and so forth? In which case, what does that mean for our renewals program and so on? Or is it just because we didn't get the best possible report?
Yep, thank you. Thank you for raising that, because it was, Michael, it's a key issue that I see, particularly the other information we've got. Okay, anything else folk would like to raise? Peter, you're indicating strongly that you're going into a difficult period. I mean, if I can say that.
Yep.
In the sense that there is a need for a real sense. And I noticed you said if we want 654. I think the letter of expectation is clear. We want 654. At least that seems to be what the elected members are saying. I'm very interested because we haven't got you talk about some of the stuff that's been formalised by way of resolution. I'm not proposing that we do more than the resolution here, but I am very sensitive to what you've talked about actually the position you land on will have attendant risk.
Yes.
And I will be very interested to see how you characterise that and actually how it's dealt with at a governance level.
Okay.
One of the things that we've talked informally about is at the moment perhaps a level of, and I'll use it carefully, the immaturity around risk appetite. And that's a responsibility for us as a committee to be worried about. And actually, so it's one thing that you'll come up with that. The question is, are we ready as a governance team to handle whether that fits inside our appetite, which will be a very interesting question. So keep the conversation going because it will be a difficult period. I get that.
Yeah, look, we have risk now.
That's right, exactly.
I mean, there's no
right.
rates number that gives you no risk. Certainly nothing that anybody could pay. So we have risk now, but if you go leaner and meaner and down to 654, there'll be more risks. The question is, how do you see them? How do you deal with them? And what's your plan for those risks? Because they're going to be there. As I said, it's a bit simplistic, but it's like the weekly shop is no longer 500, it's 300. But if the whānau drops over on the weekend, what have you got? These the cupboard bare.
Yeah.
So you need to understand what level of risk you're at and where it is, and is it in the areas you can live with or not. So when we get to a capital program of 570 and 654, I'm sure lots of people will say, yeah, but your risks now look like this.
Absolutely.
But that'll simply be the truth. It's not necessarily going to change what you've decided to do. It's how you live with that rather than we would like the risk to not be there.
Oh, I'm agreeing with you, and we are basically talking the same thing. The critical thing is the challenge at a governance level is to settle on that as being acceptable risk and to govern to that level. Okay, but that's not. I'm not talking to. I'm not preaching to you guys. I'm actually, if anything, preaching to my committee members that actually there is a very real risk discussion here that needs to happen once we work out once you work out or recommend how 654 is achieved, because we'll need to live to it as we go into the new training, the new life with this LTP.
If I could just make a brief observation, habit is strong in local government. We are seeing in this LTP for the first time a very top-down approach to what is wanted, but it is meeting the traditional bottom-up approach to what is wanted. So you're getting sort of the force meets the object kind of thing. But the other thing is we are used to the idea that if we don't like a risk that we pile it back on rates.
That's right.
But 4 is essentially not far off local government CPI. In other words, about what you had last year.
That's right.
There isn't the bounce in there to go, just fold it in. It's a case of how do we live with it. And I'm not sure that everybody has quite seen that end of the pipeline yet.
Yeah. Which actually also reflects your paper about the efficiencies that you need to find, which I found was interesting. Is there anything you'd want to comment about the 21-25 or the cumulative savings up to 36 million you've got to find?
Look, I think there's been excellent work in that space, and it's actually remarkably close. ELT is very focused on it. There's been a lot of really good planning around it. There's a little bit to go, particularly in the outer years, 2 and 3. With both OPEX and CAPEX, again, we come back to this issue of habit. We'll get to a point, and then I'm sure there'll be a lot of hands going up saying, but pile it back in. I don't want that gone or out further.
Yeah.
So there'll be 2 challenges. One is getting there, and the other one is staying there.
Thank you. Chantel, I'm conscious you're in the room. We do have the existing guidance that you gave us, and I'm very grateful for that. Is there anything that you want to add at this stage? slightly pointed. We don't have an arrangement letter, and I noticed Greg saying we're still working on the methodology, and I was about to say, well, Christmas is coming too, but that's me being too snarky. Just where are things at, please?
So I don't want you to think that there's no movement from your team. There is.
Yes, good.
So we have an engagement letter now that we're working on to tailor for CCC specifically. We are still waiting on fees, unfortunately, but we understand that that is very close to being finalised. What we intend on doing is issuing sort of a separate engagement letter and a separate fee letter, similar to what we do with the annual audit, just so that we can finalise the process from an engagement perspective. In terms of the engagement letter, what we've put in front of you previously is not changing. So the risks that we've identified, the legislation reform that we've noted, etc., is reflected in the engagement letter that will be put in front of you next. So sort of the sneak peek we had of that and what we put in front of you are very well aligned. From a, in terms of the development of the methodology, we have been engaging with our Director of Local Government, and a lot of the queries we have on in-house water and how the disclosure will be involved and what is included in scope and isn't included in scope has come from us. And that's what they're working on. So what we're hoping is that although the methodology is taking a little bit longer to come out, they've had a lot of input, and it's not going to be we get it and then identify
and sort of testing.
gaps.
No, I'm with you. Yeah. Look,
So that is sort of where we are at the moment.
Look, I'm comforted. I'm conscious, and I'm not seeing Peter frown, but I'm conscious that we should acknowledge this sounds very good engagement between you and the team, which is, I want to endorse. I am really concerned about exactly the contextual comment you made at the start, Peter, which is that if I removed all the stuff out here, everything's definite and certain. But it's that stuff out here that worries me comes to land, and I'm thinking about the Head Start stuff and what have you, and what actually is the reporting entity we'll probably have to work on come 30 June when we want to adopt this baby. So again, very keen that we, I know you are, and I'll be very keen to see that comms keep going, but I'm, Peter, very worried about actually new information coming in which comes with an expectation that that will be built into the long-term plan. That's what, that's another risk that's a wee bit out there, but as an uncertainty which is a threat to the plan, external rather than one that's internally generated. Okay, that's great. Any other questions for Chantel or Peter? Last chance, guys. Really helpful, Peter. Thank you for that. And I again appreciate that. I keep looking at that letter of expectation saying the chair said this was a really great approach. I'm still of that view, by the way, and I'm very grateful for you personally and your team for the way in which it's been approached. It's giving me a sense of confidence that we'll do it right. The motions are relatively large, which as we receive, we note the update and we note in response to the action, etc., the LT plan for council to achieve that trajectory of 654 by 1 October, which I hear your point is difficult. You're starting your conversations now, and you're identifying, you've raised through that issue of levels of service required and recommendation milestones and accountabilities necessary for EL to arrive at a proposal for 1 October. I appreciate you keeping very close contact with Sam's committee, which is great. I'm going to move that. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, David. We'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, Peter. Did I see Brent come back in? I did. Well done. Oh, good timing. We're about to send out a posse, mate. No, we weren't. Look, time to get on to the transport improvement plan, please. Hello, you guys.
Morning.
Oh, I was impressed with the biking shorts. It should have stayed that way, mate. Anyway.
I don't think you'd want it to be too.
Yeah, thank you.
So if I start, I'll just set a bit of context around the report that you've got in front of you. So sort of over about the last 2 years to 18 months, we've sort of had this growing, nagging doubt that something's not quite right in our data. Some of those things are from things like subdivisions, where we would get subdivisions handed to us and we wouldn't have all the data. Some of those were things like the road efficiency groups audit, where we got 66% on our data. As we tried to ramp up our capital maintenance delivery, we were struggling to agree programs and align those with kind of Three Waters and other utility providers. And then about a year ago, we got the NZ audit, where council got a qualified audit based on one of the transport levels of service. So that was not good, and I think that added to that kind of sense of unease that we had. AMA came back okay, but AMA is specifically not a deep dive into data, whereas the NZ audit is very much a deep dive into the data. They spend 3 days on the road, they have access to our complete asset management system, and they really dig into it. And from our perspective, it came at quite a good time, because it went from a kind of, we're not quite comfortable here, to this really crystallises what the problem is and how we solve it. I think their feedback was quite fair. What they said to us in private was essentially, you're at the lower end of acceptable, but as the second biggest council in the country, you should be a lot better than that. And I think we 100% accept that. So we've put quite a lot of work now into trying to improve ourselves from that point. So we've brought in an external advisor to help us and really drive that improvement programme. He's been really handy, first of all, because he's an expert in this area, but also because he used to be a team leader within the asset management team in our transport team, so he's able to walk right in and understand what the problems is. And when we showed him the report from NZTA, he said, "Oh, these are issues I remember from my time when I was here." So they're kind of long-standing issues that it's been quite useful that he's just been able to jump in. So over about the last 6 months, I think we've made quite a lot of progress in this space. So we do have programs for the first 3 years. There are a few late clashes that we've had with other utility providers, but we're working on that. But mostly we're ready to go for this next season and for the seasons following. And we have a needs-based system for the years 4 to 10 beyond that. So that's really good. Our data quality, we believe that's been lifted. So like I said, that was 66. We're about to get another formal assessment, but we're expecting that to be about mid-80s, we think. So that's a really big step up. One of the things we found in that is that it wasn't necessarily always that we were missing the data, it just wasn't in our asset management system, so it wasn't being picked up. So there's been a lot of tidying up and trying to improve to get that improvement. The traffic counts that led to the NZ audit, the number of those has already stepped up. We have a strategy that meets the NZ audit requirement, and we're really rolling those out on the ground now. And we're also looking at other ways we can gather data from. We have loops on the road, we have cameras. These things can pick up the data anyway. So we're trying to sort of improve that, but there's definitely big steps already. And from an operational point of view, we've set up a carriageway program control group that looks at each sort of edge case. Where is it resurfacing? Is it something more intrusive? And tries to make judgments on that. And we've also brought in additional people to help the delivery of those rehabilitations. So I think we're not perfect, we probably never will be, but we're definitely, I think, a lot better than we were 6 months ago, and I feel like we're heading in the right direction.
Thank you, Jacob. That's really good. I just want to acknowledge your honesty. We went in a place where we should be, given we're the second largest local authority. So, I'd ask us just to respect that actually is helpful. Thank you for the honesty. I'd like us to be solution focused, and you've got a proposal here for a solution, or you've got a solution that's underway, and I would be very keen to work out how the committee can support you and the team deal with that. So thank you for that. Just if you just check for me, you've indicated you're already on a 6 month. You had about 6 months of trying to clean up the data, if I can use that in a colloquial sense. So that preceded the NZTA report, because the date of the NZTA report is the 11th of May. Which is not 6 months ago.
We got provisional data.
That's only a couple of months ago. So you've been on this journey a wee bit earlier than that, correct?
So they did the 3 days, they then went in a room by themselves for a day, and then they called us in and gave us essentially the informal feedback and said, this is what's going to be in our final report. We were given a a first draft of that before Christmas. We commented on that. So the version that came out in May actually includes our comments and feedback. So we've known essentially what it's going to say for several months before that.
Brilliant. Okay, that's good. Well, that just helps with the timing, just to check that I appreciate that's actually the case. Right, members, we've got questions for the team here, please. No? Jacob, I'd be very keen that we can keep an eyeball on the progress against your plan. I mentioned this to Brent before. I'm not just, you've got a whole lot of widgets here you have to deal with, and I'm not, that's you guys will manage that capably. I'd be very keen that we just have something small that indicates at our quarterly meetings you're on track. In other words, what is the risk to the program of improvement? If there are risks that are real or crystallising, I think we would like to hear about that, because it's actually, risks the actual premise that we're on an improvement program, which would be good. The other thing, so if that's possible, I don't want to make that overbearing, Brent, but I would just appreciate, as I said, I'm interested that there are no barriers to the program of improvement being hindered. That's really the key thing I'm after. Yep, Brent.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, and based on our conversation earlier, I think at those quarterly updates we'll focus on the overall risk to council, right, which is if we don't get this right, it may impact on our funding and relationship with NZTA. So we'll look at the overall risk, and while the team can carry on with the operational side of it and fix the individual bits and pieces on the way, and we'll attach that. So I think that's a good thing to do, is bring it back quarterly.
Thank you. The other thing I just wanted to check, realising it was really a question rather than what was otherwise going to be a sort of a final statement. Jacob, you're obviously saying, and it is probably the case, that most of the information's inside. You just have to get it onto your asset management plan. We're obviously we've just had Peter here talking about about long-term planning. We're confident that these results won't significantly impair the quality of our long-term planning.
No, if anything, it probably supports the work that we're doing for our long-term plan. Yeah.
Brilliant, good. I figured that. I just wanted to hear that from you. So that's tremendous. You can see I'm being a tricky chair here, so thank you for that. Appreciate that.
Bruce,
you might.
I guess just a line thing, probably more for Brent then. So were there findings in the report specifically on transport that are relevant across all of the infrastructure, and are those recommendations being implemented across the organisation?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, absolutely, and we've already put measures in place. Some of the key risks we had in the transport area were generated through other utilities in coordination with them, so we've already taken measures there to bring in schedulers, and with a recent appointment in the Three Waters area, through the assistance of the CE, we've incorporated that into his position description to be responsible for the coordination of programs and making sure we get a better result.
Thank you. Righty, let's go to the resolution, please, which is simply, Jacob, that we received. But look, thank you again to both of you and Sharon as well, Brent, for being here. And as I say, I appreciate the upfrontness with where you're at, and I'm even more appreciative of actually the solutions that you guys are going through. Well done. We're keen to support. Do I have a mover in a second that we receive this, please? Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Jake. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against is carried. Thank you. Appreciate that, you guys. That's great. Go to the resolution to exclude the public. We've still got a bit to go. You've got the resolution in front of you, and the items, I consider they are ones that we should deal with in PX. So I'm going to move from the chair that we go to PX. Thanks, Tim. Is there any discussion on that resolution? There being none, I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Against is carried. Brilliant. Righty.